I say I want to serve. So I now under the past 2 years, almost 2 years, I am getting certified, trying to get a process certified sex therapist. So my supervisor, she was like, add sex therapist to your website, and you'll start to get some, and I know you know that the person, you start to get some interesting phone calls. And lo and behold, as soon as I did that, I did start to get some interesting phone calls. Definitely out of my comfort zone at first. Sex therapy is a whole other world. I mean, a world that I didn't even know. I just was like, I want to work with couples who have issues with their sex life, and lo and behold, I get so complicated. I need a supervision, basically. But once I put that out there, I started getting calls for sex therapy, for different issues and things like that. So it's really being careful and attentive to what you put out there. Like I said, your brand, what is the image you want to portray to the world, what do you stand for? Like, if you're natural, rock natural. If you like it, blow out, because I remember I challenged my business coach, because I'm very sensitive to social justice and issues in multiculturalism. And so at the time I had my little box braids, and he was saying, oh, well, don't take a picture with those. I said, so what you trying to say, because it's an Afrocentric look, that I shouldn't do that so people will call me? No, I'm not going for that. If you don't like it, you don't like it. You wasn't meant to be my client. So it's staying true to whatever your brand is, however you like to rock your style, rock that style. Don't change it up, because a lot of, especially professionals of color, will ask questions about, oh, well, should I change it up so that I get more clients? Should I change my voice up? No, because at that point, are you really a client that I want to serve if I have to feel like I have to change or shift who I am? It's not worth it. Hire a business coach. Like I said, business coaches are very, very helpful. Helped me so much, like I said, with my branding, with my professional photos, and he's, like I said, they're very big on that. To my business cards, because even my business cards, I mean, you have to start somewhere, but he placed my card on the table. He was like, what will people think of that? Even when it comes to the color, like the red and the yellow, he was like, it reminds me of McDonald's. To get in and get out. He was like, that's not what you're trying to do. You want people to feel comfortable, you want people to feel safe, so you have to have colors that are comfortable and safe. So the grays, the greens, things that represent growth, things that represent comfort, and those are the colors that are in my new logo. So they taught me all those things, and it helped me to be a better business person, a better entrepreneur, because it's the business of the business. Professional photos, like I said, means a lot. Some people smile, some people don't. Unfortunately for me, I'm not a good person with a straight face. We tried, and he was like, no, we're not going to put that, look like we're going to fight somebody. So I had to put the one when I was smiling. And honestly, some clients who come to my office have shared, the reason why I picked you is because I like your smile. I mean, sometimes it's just as simple as that. You never know what may, be drawn for a person, or what may stand out to someone. And like I said, the marketing, that's an important piece. Networking is such a big thing. And me, I'm more of an introvert. It took me a while to get to even this point, to even do this freely. And I was always looking at my mentors and how freely they would speak and do this, that. I was like, oh God, I hope I can get there one day. And finally it kicked in, like maybe 1 or 2 years ago, where I didn't need notes, or I used to have this and shaking. But networking wasn't fun for me. It still to this day isn't really that fun for me, but they say introverts make for better networkers. Because, an extrovert, you can meet 20 people, but introverts, we might meet 3 or 4, but those are long-lasting networking relationships. And so many people that I met were networking over the years, I still keep in touch with them to this day. So usually going to networking events, going to different places where you feel you might meet people who may service, once again, the clients, or even if you want to do speaking or whatever it is that you want to do, that will give you opportunities. And especially in Atlanta, it's not so much what you know, it's who you know. And a lot of opportunities that I've gotten is because of who I know. Even through Facebook, because I'm pretty active on there, and it's intentional. And the WeTV opportunity came from a colleague. I only met her once. We met through Facebook, and she was like, she was honest. She was like, well, I referred them to you because I knew you the truth. I didn't have no time, so I knew that you would be the best fit for it. It was because I knew her. Had I not known her, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So a lot of it has to do with that. Taxes, I mean, people don't like to talk about that. Business, taxes sucks. I mean, it is what it is, because, you have the taxes you owe, plus you have self-employment taxes. So tax season, for me, it's kind of scary, but it shouldn't be, because if you save it the way you're supposed to and pay on it the way you're supposed to, you have a good CPA, a good accountant to work on your things, then you're pretty okay. But that is the reality of being an entrepreneur. I mean, all your stuff is tax-free in the front end, but you gotta pay it all off on the back end. But what I do, deductions, I write off my life. My hair, my nails, my dresses, my, anything that I have, I write off. That's within the limits of being able to write it off, because those are deductions that can work in your favor as you grow. And especially when you have contractors or employees, that's another write-off. So all those things have to be taken into consideration. So I have my little self-employed app. I have 2 apps, self-employed, QuickBooks, to keep and manage all of my money, what's coming in, what's coming out. I'm always trying to learn and get better, sharpen the sword, and making yourself better every day. Giving yourself vacations, like I said, that's important as a business person, because you're working a lot. And a lot of times, like I said, my schedule is so booked, I lose track of things. Like I said, I'm becoming my mentors, because I used to say, oh, the paper, like, aren't you great to get this, that, but now I get, even with people in supervision, signing paperwork, doing all this stuff, and it's like charge my head and my heart, and because you get so busy. And so it is taking the time to step back and give yourself a breather for self-care, because I'm a big advocate of self-care. If I can't take care of myself, I can't do anything for anyone else. So I always advocate and preach about that. So growing and expanding, like I said, I'm in this phase here. Transitioning, my goal in the next year is to transition to full-time, all private pay. Insurance, I don't feel like it is too much. It's a lot easier with private pay. You don't have to do billing. It's an exchange, service exchange. So now I'm slowly transitioning to say, now I'm not accepting new clients. The only way I'm accepting new clients is if they're self-pay. And so there's a couple of therapists down in Atlanta, I'm sure across the country and the world actually, who are full-time self-pay. Earning potential is much more. You can work less and make more. So based on what my goals are for each month, if it's all self-paid, I only need 10 clients. And to take me where I am now. So imagine if I had 20, 30, I mean, I don't want to do no 30 or anything, but just imagine where that can go, and starting hiring more associates. And I am happy to work with associates who are at the master's level, who are at the internship level, because by the time they're licensed, we've already developed a relationship. They know how I work, I know how they work. There's no one starting from scratch who's fully licensed, which is fine if you are, but it's just a lot easier when they start off under your wing, and you can kind of train them in the way they need to go and the way that you want them to go at the same time. So that's another piece there. Starting programs is another piece that a lot of therapists don't do, that I actually just learned about at a conference. I was at with Monica Shaw, the Money Conference, and the business coach was sharing with me. She was like, do a program. So for, just hypothetical, for a couple, if they want to do 4 sessions a month, if you charge $200 an hour, it would typically probably be, like $800 if it was for the month. But she's like, well, make it $795. People like the $5 off. They think they're getting a deal. It's only $5. But it's like, ooh, $795 instead of $800, that works. So if you got 5 couples with that program, the earning potential is much greater. So it's always thinking about innovative ideas on how to bring in more revenue, how to make a bigger impact, and how to bring in, do more things. Marketing, speaking, and consultation. This is the part that I have to find a great, because CPAs are bookkeepers, they're month-to-month payment. In my head, I'm like, that's another expense, but it's an expense that's necessary, because they will keep up your things, your finances. Lawyers are good to have. Always, I always say it's easier to get your license than it is to keep it. So it's very important that you always have a lawyer on deck for consultation, because there's a lot of ethical dilemmas, things that we don't even know of, that come our way, and it's always good to have some type of counsel on board to kind of guide you in the right direction. And I have one on retainer where it's like, hey, I have this situation here, what do you think, which way should I go? But it's just good to have that. It's better to be safe than sorry. It's worth the money. It really is. Empire building, like I said, doing books. I think that's the thing that's missing now, is me doing a book. I don't know when I'm gonna have time to do it, but people keep talking in my ear about it. So just having, like I said, different things, products, DVDs, you know what I mean? I have a colleague, she speaks at different PESI conferences, which is not that difficult to do. You just submit a proposal like you do a conference, and she's a PESI speaker. They pay for her speaking, her board. She has DVDs, so she has passive residual income coming in. I mean, TED Talks, all those things, you know what I mean? And that's if you're in the speaking type of thing. Keep an open mind. Don't sell yourself short about what you can make. So if it's like, oh, I just want to make 100,000, it's okay if you say I want to make 5, 6, 7, 8, you know, and I'm in a private practice group. Like I said, I keep myself informed and I keep sharpening my sword. But one woman, I think it was the beginning of the year, she was super excited because she was like, my practice just grossed 1.4 million last year. So, you know, it's definitely possible. You know, and so that gives me the motivation that I need to keep me going, like, okay, good, so it's possible, you can do this. It's just kind of chugging along and keeping it going and building a brand, building an empire, and building, having an impact of what you really want to do and the impression you want to leave on the world. And like I said, never stop learning. I was reading a book on my way down here, Profit First, a new way to save your money and learn how to grow your business as opposed to trying to make a lot of money and grow fast. It's like I make it slowly, but I make a larger profit because I'm taking my time. So I forgot the name of the author. I'll give that to you when I find it in my phone. And this is the money mantra that Monica Shaw gave me. It stuck with, she gave this to me 3 years ago. And it's stuck with me ever since because she gives each individual person their own money mantra. So I was always the person that lived off of scarcity. I come from humble beginnings, so I hold on to things forever. You know, it can be falling apart, but I won't let it go. And she was like, but it's sad that you hold on to, I had these gloves from Target. I paid $20 for these gloves, and the holes was all in it. She was like, why don't you just buy some new gloves? You know, but I was like, but I like these ones. You know, I don't want to let them go. So she was saying that she was like, if you don't invest in yourself, how do you expect to grow? So, like I said, what you put into yourself, what you put into your business is what you will get out of it. But basically, she said, being wealthy is my birthright and it allows me to change the world. So every year on my vision board, I write that at the top to have that as my thing. You know what I mean? And I joke and say I want to be the Oprah Winfrey with mental health to see where she is, because you see how her, you know, she's in a different field, but how her business, how her entrepreneurship has grown. And I look to her for a lot of her things and the things that she shares in her speeches and things like that about how she came to be where she is. So here are some of the resources. This is Casey Truffaut. This is her. I'm going to get slides or something, or okay, good. So these 3 people have been my motivation. Like I said, Casey Truffaut, Joe Sanok, he's really great too because he has $1 million practice. He, on his website, actually, he broke down what he made each month. That was the motivation that I needed. I think on average, right now he's at about like $40,000 a month in his private practice of revenue. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, but he has about 4 or 5 contractors under him. He does groups, he does podcasts, you know, which is another thing I'm thinking about as well. And like I said, Monica Shaw. So they have all their products and everything on their websites, and anything that you need in regards to that, they're very resourceful in those ways. And that's, okay, next that. Let me see here, and I can at least share one last thing I can show. I don't know if is it Wi-Fi? Yes. Because that was one thing I meant to add was to show my website, and I actually just redid it actually in March, and because I needed a new look, it had to look me. I'm all about looking official. And not looking kind of like it's cheap, but like I said, I had to start somewhere. Let me see here. Oh, same page. Okay. If not, it's okay, but I did want to show y'all what okay. Yeah, look at it. There we go. Okay, thank you. Look kind of distorted on here, but so the word's kind of small, but it's all messed up, but I just wanted to at least give y'all an idea of what it looks like. So here, I mean, it has, the words are really tiny, But just to give you an idea, I'll kind of talk about myself in here, my areas of expertise, and then contact us, you got opportunity. Down here I have like my little Instagram feed, got the little things over here, and then meet the team. So it just kind of is user-friendly, it's more cleaner, because my last one didn't look like this at all. It got the, have a little team here, got the services we provide, online business consultation. I'm actually now working on my own personal website, because a lot of what I've come to find is that a lot of private practice owners, they have their own page and then they have their practice page. So somebody gave me an example, they was like, just think about Dr. Oz, he has his own practice. I don't know where it is or anything, but I know him. And that's the thing, it's like, okay, we don't really know where the practice is, even though our compliance is good, but it's like, we know her though. So we know wherever she is, that's where we want to be anyway. So it's kind of distinguishing, it's having your practice is your baby, but it's also your own self, which is your own brand, which you have separate from your practice. And so right now, like I have like different videos and stuff, or presentations that I have, probably not gonna pop up, but like YouTube videos, my presentations, and like even blogs. Like writing was, for a long time, it was not my strong suit. But now it's like doing blogs and things like that, because that's another way to get your name out there. Blogs don't have to be any more than 1,000 words. Just something about, particularly related to your expertise. I've got, because infidelity is also a specialty of mine. I am an expert panelist for a woman who has a website called Survive, Thrive, and Soar. So it's about helping individuals overcome narcissistic partners, and do those once a month as well. So I also put that on the website. So just having things continuously put out there, content. The one thing I lack is video content. As much as I want to be in multimedia, I'm nervous to be in front of the camera. So even when they're on my own phone, I just choke up sometimes. I had did a new segment back in September. I was like, oh my God, it was like cameras everywhere where I had to speak about texting and relationships. But I was so nervous. So that's the one thing that's missing now is video content, because that's another piece as well. Like even when it comes to hot media topics, and speaking about, oh, what did y'all think about this, that, and adding your 2 cents to it, all those things are a contributing factor in your brand and marketing yourself and growing and expanding. And that's all I have. I guess it's
So I don't know if anyone has questions for Candice. I know we're starting to leave. But that's a lot of information, and I do remember you used to
yes.
And so I'm just amazed listening to you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Amazing information.
Yes.
I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and that was
there was an MFT conducting a presentation about consultating, primarily with different organizations and companies.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that I had for her was about just the distinction between what we do as MFTs versus organizational psych. And if she had any challenges like with marketing herself with businesses and really like making that claim that what I offer is very different. I was wondering if you have any experiences with that as well.
I have only had one experience, and this was in regards to, they knew specifically what I did, because this woman sought me out. Her sister was my client. And so at the business, they wanted to work on their relationships with each other. So it wasn't so much the structure of the organization, it was more how do we engage and interact with each other to make business smoother together. So it was really deep. We had to do a lot of like, I'll say self-therapist, a lot of self of the person type of activities, and she was very open. She was like, give us some activities where we got to dig deep in ourselves and with each other, how we interact and engage with each other. So it was all about the relationship. So that was the piece, but that was just through the word of mouth, and that she knows a marriage and family therapist. And that's the piece where, as far as consultation and organizations, that I have to get more into. But when I do that consultation, I do specify that it's in regards to the relationships with one another in order to make their workplace smoother. Kind of more like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I liked a lot what you said about making money allows you to have a greater impact. I'm also wondering how you would recommend balancing that with working with the populations that we work with and the populations I work with, a lot of people who are lower income, a lot of undocumented immigrants, and so how do you balance, like, yes, I want to have out-of-pocket people who can pay, I don't want to have to deal with insurance, that'll help me grow my business more, but at the same time I want to serve the populations that I want to serve. So how do you balance both of those?
Yeah, honestly, that was a difficult decision for me in making with regard to self-pay, because honestly, at my race, I mean, it's not going to be people from those populations that's going to see me out because it's self-pay and because of the price. So for me, I try to balance it with, I guess, paying it forward. So for example, I'm a part of that Sisters Empowerment group, and I volunteer counseling services, case management services, speaking, I speak for free. I see the women that are going through their things, they refer some of them to me, so I have a couple of my pro bono cases, but it doesn't happen often, but that's my way within myself of leveling it out, because I am passionate about low-income populations and at-risk youth and things like that, but my way of giving back is through that organization that I volunteer for. So that's how I make amends with myself in regards to that.
Questions?
Yes, thank you so much. Everything that you said was like what I needed to hear, so I appreciate you speaking candidly and all of that. I had a question regarding sex therapy and you putting that, because my understanding is that it's not a protected license, and so pretty much kind of anyone can market themselves as a sex therapist. And so I was just wondering what your journey was with that. I think you mentioned some specialized training or something, and so I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about what you did.
Sure. The sex therapist thing, like now they make it, ASEC has made it so that the only way you can say sex therapist is if you're under supervision of a certified sex therapist. Because at first I had to put sex therapist in training, but then they changed it to say that now as long as you're under supervision you can say that. But basically the process, I had to seek out a sex therapist who is, she's in super right now, so supervision of being a sex therapy supervisor. So I saw her out, and then I had to do CEUs that were accredited by ASEC, and that's a lot of training. That's the part that's going to take forever, is the training piece. The supervision, I'm pretty much done with that, but it's the training, because it has to be specified with ASEC, or it can be related, but it has to be within that topic of sex therapy. I think she told me some of them can be like abroad, but it still has to be the topic of sex within that context, with sexual orientation, identity, all those things.
Just like
Yes.
the MT license, they have, you need a certain amount of contact hours under each category.
I think you need 150, I think, of sex therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot, yeah. And
The
plus,
CEs, of course, were depending on where if you were in a human sexuality program, or there's some postmaster's programs, if you attend those programs, and you get half of what you made, and you have to do the other half in CEs.
yeah, it is.
But they have worked really hard to brand themselves
Yes.
as a separate discipline. And you look back on their history, historically, they were a separate discipline.
Yeah.
Until we started blending together, so.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your time this evening. As I started thinking about private practice, I had made a comment to a friend of the family who was a lawyer, and I was running through things and having that same debate of how do I maintain my commitment to the populations of lower SES and still want to be not only valued but paid my value and worth for the work that I'm doing. And so I was tossing around like starting a 501c3 and also having my private practice and what that would look like. And then I was thinking, well, maybe I'll link with some associates and, you know, we'll join in this. And it was funny because she immediately said, you need to get a lawyer now. She's like, just trust me in this beginning stage.
Yes.
It's easier if you have someone with you growing than to come to us on fire. So I'm hearing that same thread in what you were saying today.
Yes, absolutely.
And then I was also thinking and wondering if you had explored getting associates, like partnering with, is that something
Like
that,
other therapists.
yeah.
Yes, because I mean, I have, she's not, it's not so much a partner because she's working under my supervision, so she just got her master's. But as far as like partnering, I haven't had that piece as of yet, but it's all under my supervision, and I think a part of that is obviously the control thing too, that I have to work on.
I was just, I haven't seen that a lot in our field, and I don't know if anybody else maybe can speak to that as well, but it seems to be that or my experience of meeting MFTs in private practice is that they are in their own practices and not really in partnerships or associations with. So it was just interesting to see that, and I didn't know if there was any guidance or anything.
Yeah, with that. And I think, you know, if you do want to seek that out, it depends on the type of partnership that you're looking for, that you want. Because to me, partnerships can be a little sketchy. It's like making sure that you trust the person, that they have professional integrity, and that, you know, because sometimes in partnerships, you know, I'm responsible for what I do, but I don't know what they're doing. And it's not to be cynical and say like, oh, they're going to do something wrong. But it's like, not only do I have to think about myself and what I'm doing, but I also have to think about what they're doing, in whatever capacity that is. But it could be potentially great for the business, I mean, to have partnerships, because I know some businesses do have partnerships, but as far as like with other associates or organizations, that's the piece that is in my strong suit particularly. But it's not necessarily a bad idea either. It's just a matter of structuring it and, like you said, having a lawyer that can kind of talk you through that process. And that you're protected, because to me, if it's not written down, it never existed.
Yes, thank you so much for everything you said, and it was great. I'm also an introvert, so it's really nice to hear like how much you've grown and what you can accomplish. So, one question I had was your research. It seems like it was in domestic violence then with couples. So I'm curious how you've brought your researcher self into private practice and everything you do.
That's a good question. Yeah, because my research was on African American adults who witness domestic violence as low-income youth and its impact on their self-identity development. So a lot of some of the clients, I couldn't realize, which was something I had to learn the hard way, that I wanted those fresh, like, domestic violence clients. But I mean, honestly, they're always in crisis mode, so they don't come to someone like me right away. They more or less, and that's how I paired up and kind of grown to know my colleague with the Sisters Empowerment Network, because she gets them fresh out. So in regards to the research piece, the clients that I serve is a piece of that, but also, you know, being a reviewer for general and personal family violence, that gives me the opportunity to stay on top of the research, and also through the writing, because I did finally, this was a couple years ago, got published in a journal with my mentor, Dr. Marlene Watson, which took forever and drove me crazy. But you know, the writing piece is kind of my way to try to stay abreast and on top of it. And also with my blogs and everything, so it's not so much directly research, but it's more or less just still speaking to the topic at hand, and still getting some type of literature out there, even though it's not like professional or academic literature, it's still some form of literature. Even I meant to add this with writing. It's called Help a Reporter Out. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's free access to get your writing out there to more like commonplace areas. So they have like some Essence magazine opportunities, Bustle.com. I have a couple of things out there that are published with those popular websites, and sometimes they'll even reach out like, hey, I need a piece on this, could you write a word for me? So it's more from that space, But in regards to the direct research in the practice, is more with the writing stuff. But the population, I do get some individuals who have directly what my dissertation was on, but it's not a lot of researching this in there. Only through the writing and the volunteering, doing the review work.
Yeah, and I think that's still really great because then you contribute to that, to closing that research or clinical gap. So that's cool.
That's a good point. Yeah, thank you.
Candice,
Yes.
could you provide the citation?
Help a reporter out? Yes, HARO. It's going to help a reporter out, and it's free. You don't have to pay, especially if you enjoy writing. And it gives you the only thing that's annoying because they send you emails twice a day, every day, but you get different topics that if you feel like it's something you're interested in writing, they'll have a whole list of things, and then you just submit it to the person is blind, and then they'll, sometimes they tell you they published it, sometimes they don't. It's just sometimes I Google my name, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess they accepted it. So that's how you find out sometimes that they actually accepted your writing. And sometimes it's like a little blurb, and then, you'll see your name pop up on something. Yeah, it's a great resource.
Do you ever see yourself fully stepping away from therapy, doing more of a CEO role?
My intern jokes with me all the time and says, excuse me, that the goal is to push me out. She's like, you need to do more the Dr. Cooper stuff that you like to do, like being on TV and being on radio. We take over the therapy part. So I feel like I'm gonna want to still do therapy, but just not as much as I am. So maybe 5-10 hours a week tops. That's my goal. So, and the goal is to, travel, not often, because I know family planning is in mind in the near future. So with kids, you can't do as much, but I do want to step back a little bit. And Joe Sanok is a great resource because he only works about 10 hours a week, but he gets the time to spend with his family, he gets to travel with his wife and his kids. So, and he does podcasts, groups for therapists and some television. So I see myself doing more of the television, radio type of thing, kind of like Dr. Jim Mann out in California. I love her. She does the couples therapy and the family therapy on VH1. I don't know if y'all ever seen it, but so kind of, I don't know if I want to cut it off completely though. Yeah.
So I'm going to step out there and ask this question because I think this is a question I usually hold back because I'm also someone who I'm at the end of this journey. And I know that I currently am in private practice. And it's going really well, but I'm one of those people who, like yourself, I realize this is my wheelhouse. I'm not going to try to add other wheels onto this wheelhouse. This is what I like.
Yeah.
And so I wondered how this is a weird question, I don't know how to phrase this correctly. How you identify, because in this realm, I think often people are like, well, you got a PhD, are you a researcher? Do you see yourself as a researcher or an academician? And even though I adjunct and I think I'll continue to do that, I just kind of wonder where you find yourself and then how you keep that afloat, like what you see as your kind of professional identity, and then what you do to feed that and keep it afloat, because I think it feels really lonely. Like when you say this is what you love and you got a PhD and this is really what you love though, people look at you like, okay, why'd you do that? You wasted your life.
Exactly. I always felt like I was a clinician. I always did. I never saw myself as not really a researcher or a professor. I just never, that's not the vision I had. And so what I always lead with is, when people ask like, well, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in private practice, and yeah, sometimes people, they don't realize that I have a PhD until I give my business card. They're like, oh, doctor, oh, okay. And so in the academic setting, it's automatically assumed like, oh, okay, they must have their doctorate or whatever, but I usually lead with that. But in professional settings, I'm intentional with calling myself Dr. Cooper, Lovett, but sometimes just Dr. Cooper, and because it's assumed that because I look young. It's funny, when the clients thought my intern, like I said, she's about 20 years my senior, they thought she was the boss. I was like, no, I am. She's the intern. Excuse me. So, but usually I always say, I lead with saying I am a clinician. And even in my marketing, my tools, I always have clinician. I'd say, I think in my hashtag, I might put like professor or something, but because it's just to make it pop on Instagram. But I just kind of, I think because I always led with that, and it is lonely in a sense, because now my colleagues, go figure, they call me now, oh, Candice, can we, how'd you do that private practice thing? Because now they find themselves. So it's like, oh, I need to talk to you, I need a consultation, and, you know, but it's because you're trailblazing a lot. And a lot of it, you're kind of doing it on your own, and it isn't the track of, you know, it's typical. It's like, oh, let me do my postdoc, let me get into a tenure track position. That's just not the position I wanted, and I always stood on that platform of I'm a clinician at best. And I've had people tell me, even before I got my doctoral program, like, well, if that's what you want to do, like, why are you going for the doctorate? And for me, honestly, I mean, the doctorate does hold weight, and it's times, you know, my husband joked with me because I'm a did a radio show, and yeah, I was just talking outside of my mouth. I just made something up, and he was like, the crazy thing is that they listened to you and they took it for what it was. And I mean, he was like, you made that up, did you? I said, I did, you know. But I think what happened I mean, you know, at the master's level, it's still, because you can do private practice at the master's level and be very successful. There are several therapists. But I feel like it just, you know, honestly, with the doctorate, it just holds more in regards to what you say and what you do. We can do the same things, but like I said, it's just more or less rolling with confidence and saying, hey, you know, I'm a clinician, this is what I do, and yes, I do have a doctorate as well, and it gives me the opportunity to do more things, the writing, and even if you want to do research, you just have those options available to you. But it's like, I understand that, and at the same time, this is what I like. And then it's feeling okay and comfortable in that. And it is, like, and you're absolutely right, it kind of is a long road, you know, and I have we call ourselves MFT SysDocs. So all of us are in private practice, and we kind of support each other. We go out to dinner once a month and just talk about, you know, what we're doing, how can we be of assistance to each other, and how we continue to help and support and grow. All of them have PhDs, MFT license, and they are doing private practice. And I think the one